Alright guys, so next up we're going to be talking about the spinal cord. So the spinal cord is another one of the organs of the central nervous system, and it extends from the foramen magnum of the skull all the way down into the vertebral column through a canal called the vertebral canal. And this canal is formed by vertebral foramina of the stacked vertebrae that make up the vertebral column. The purpose of this canal is basically to protect the spinal cord and to add some stability. The spinal cord begins, like I said, at the foramen magnum of the skull, and it actually extends all the way down to the coccyx at birth and through the younger years, and as the body ages and as the body grows, it actually outgrows the spinal cord, and through later years and basically through all of adulthood, the spinal cord only actually reaches about to L1 or L2 of the vertebral spine. Here in my diagram, you guys can see the cervical spine, the thoracic spine, lumbar spine, and the sacral spine. Some of the more important landmarks to note for this presentation are the conus medullaris, the cauda equina, the filum terminale, and the cervical and lumbar enlargements. The conus medullaris is usually around L1 or L2, and it marks the end of the actual spinal cord in itself. The cauda equina actually starts right where the conus medullaris ends, and it's actually the location in which the spinal cord breaks up into smaller branches and smaller nerve fibers. The filum terminale in this area right here actually extends from the conus medullaris to the sacrum and the coccyx, and it's basically made up of connective tissue that supports and kind of anchors the distal part of the spinal cord to bone, and it provides longitudinal support for the actual lumbar, sacral spine, and the coccygeal nerve. And as you can see right here, the cervical and the cervical enlargement and the lumbar enlargement are located where they are, and they are actually a bit of a thicker section of the spinal cord at both locations. And this is because these two sections of the spinal cord actually form nerve plexuses that supply the cervical or the upper limbs and the lumbar or the lower limbs of the body with nerve impulses. Next up, we're going to be looking at the distribution of gray matter and white matter inside the spinal cord, and to do this we're going to be looking at a cross section of a vertebrae in order to be able to see which of the content is the gray matter, in this case represented by the blue lines, and the white matter represented by the purple lines. As you can see, the gray matter is completely covered or completely surrounded by the white matter in this cross section of the spinal cord. The way that the gray matter is held inside of the spinal cord, it actually gives it sort of a butterfly shape that it's recognized for. So to start, let's look at the gray matter. The gray matter, like I said, is represented here in blue in this diagram, and it's in the shape of a butterfly. And the gray matter is actually composed of cell bodies of neurons, dendrites, and some short unmyelinated axons. As you can see here, the gray matter has two different projections. It has your dorsal horn or posterior horn, and it also has right here your anterior or ventral horn. In the posterior horn right here, you're going to find a set of sensory interneurons that are both somatic and visceral, and are only found in the central nervous system. In the anterior horn, you're going to find motor neurons that are somatic and are in charge of skeletal muscle control and basically control the movements that the skeletal muscle or the body performs. One of the more important structures of this actual cross section right here is the dorsal root ganglion, and this structure right here is where the sensory information from the body is brought in order to meet with the interneurons connecting to the posterior horn, and this is basically the sensory information's connection to the spinal cord. And lastly, we have this structure right here that you can see right in the middle of the gray matter, and it's a small canal called the central canal. In the central canal, you actually are going to find the contents of the central canal are actually cerebrospinal fluid, which is essential when you're thinking of nourishing the nervous tissue of the spinal cord. Now we'll talk about the white matter section of the spinal cord. White matter is made out of fibers of myelinated axons that are ascending and descending. The ones that are ascending are carrying sensory information to the brain from the body, and the ones that are descending are actually carrying motor information down to the body in order to control musculoskeletal movement. The bundles of fibers in the white matter of the spinal cord are called funiculi. So you can divide the white matter of the spinal cord into three different sections. You have the posterior funiculi, you have your lateral funiculi, and you have your anterior funiculi right over here. The posterior funiculi that you see right here contain important pathways that carry information to the brain about limb positioning, which is basically the position of your body, and proprioception, and also very important information about touch and the sense of touch in the body. The lateral funiculi depicted right here contain very important pathways as well that are actually involved with pain, and other descending pathways that are responsible for motor commands and motor function. And the anterior funiculi that you see right here also contain ascending pathways that are carrying sensory information from the body to the brain, and descending pathways that are carrying motor information from the brain to the body and to the skeletal muscle fibers.